Engaged Employee Podcast is brought to you by the Patterns of Possibility, where we help people make more meaningful relationships in both their personal and professional life. Hi, I'm Coach Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I want to welcome you to the Engaged Employee Podcast. Our mission is to emphasize the relationship between the employee and the workplace with the goal of enhancing engagement levels to create a more productive and satisfying work environment. While many organizations strive to create a more engaging atmosphere, they often miss the mark by forcing connection with big team building events like axe throwing or escape rooms. Those activities only leave employees with a short-lived sense of belonging. Organizations may also try smaller and more suffocating events like happy hours or group birthday celebrations that their employees feel obligated to attend. As a social connections and business culture coach, I found that to create a stable, engaged, and productive workforce, there needs to be a shift in focus from mandatory fun and manufactured connection towards building trust and authentic conversation. Join me and a guest as we dive into social wellness strategies for the individual employee, techniques for developing interpersonal relationships with coworkers, and even some approaches for leaders to enrich the overall organizational culture. The Engaged Employee Podcast starts now. Hi, I'm Coach Lee Hopkins. Welcome to Engaged Employee Podcast. My guest today is Taresa Scott. Taresa is the founder of Bleuprint, which is an EdTech company focused on delivering personalized e-learning experiences to onboard, upskill, and reskill professionals in the workplace. With a master's in science and education, Taresa has a strong background in instructional design, learning experience design, and e-learning development. Through her company, Taresa is on a mission to empower modern learners to own their skill development so that they can learn, grow, and thrive in their careers. Our conversation today will be focused on interpersonal relationships between coworkers and colleagues. Taresa, welcome to the Engaged Employee Podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be here with you. When I first met you, we talked about what you do for a living, and I just had a really difficult time understanding the concept. And that's why you help people for that exact reason. And I appreciate how you broke it down for me to help you understand what it is that you do. So for those of us who are listening and unfamiliar with learning and development, can you tell us a little bit about you and how you got into that?
Yeah, so I've been in the field about 7 years. Originally got my Master of Science degree in education. And soon after I completed that master program, I went right into corporate through AT&T University. So for about 4 years, I was on a team where I worked with a group of pioneers. These were folks who were skilled in graphic design, animation, videography, script writing, the whole nine. And I really got a chance to really learn the ebbs and flows on what it really meant to really learn and apply adult learning theories in the workplace. When you think about the Addy model, the Sam model, the Kirkpatrick model, the key points and where a theory and learning really takes place to really connect learners, engage learners, so they know exactly, one, how the information is relevant to them, and then two, how to go back and apply that information to the workplace in the most practical and real world setting. So that's kind of been my stint really with corporate learning when I got directly into it. And Bleuprint has just been something that's evolved and that's like a snowball effect over the years to really be that resource to organizations who are maybe mid-size, 500 plus, 1,000 plus employees, and they're still trying to navigate, what does it mean to have L&D? How do we have personalized learning journeys? How do we effectively onboard employees? How do we continue to upskill them so they stay with our organization and continue to grow with us and move to that next level? So there's a lot of things that we really focus on when it comes to learning development, letting it be that organization strategy to really connect with their employees in the workplace.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really like a lot of things that you said about understanding why we do it and how it's applicable to me. That's what we all want to know as individuals who make up the company, the organization. We want to know what my role is and how important is it to know this information so that I can be better at my job or what is it that I need to know to connect with my coworkers, which is something that we're going to talk a little bit about today. So, with this learning and development, how is it helpful to increase these kind of skills to create better relationships with our coworkers?
The first thing is understanding people. A lot of times when it comes to training, when it comes to like communication workplaces, for example, or team building, you know, a lot of times we don't know how to connect with other folks. Maybe it's a difference in culture, background, experience. Maybe it's a center region, southern hospitality versus being on the east or west coast, how we interact. And so where training really kind of puts rubber to the road is saying, let's look at ourselves from alternative perspective, and put ourselves in the other person's shoes to get an understanding where they're coming from, where they've been. Right now, a hot commodity, or I won't say a hot commodity, but really a hot topic is diversity, equity, inclusion right now across every workplace. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. That's a big, big thing. And it's not just a phase or a fashion. It's because it's so important for us to understand the other person's experience and really connect with them. Take a moment to walk in their shoes and really be more inclusive in how we talk to one another. How we show up and respect one another. Just the same as saying, "Hey, my name is Taresa Scott. My pronouns are she, her, and hers." Those are, you know, very small things that can be done to be more inclusive and just be mindful of for other people out in the world. So I think that is the biggest piece, just understanding the other party and really taking a moment to walk in their shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. And along the lines of learning why this is relevant to me and how it impacts me in the workplace, speaking your pronouns is something that I do in the introduction here because it relates directly to me as being a trans person. I transitioned from female to male, and so I've been conscious of using my pronouns or changing the pronouns. And some people don't even have not transitioned or anything like that, but still, why would they want to say those pronouns? It's learning how it's impacting and connecting with other people, learning that I understand, Lee, where you're coming from, or I understand someone else where they're coming from. It's a matter of having that real connection. So the piece is learning why this is important and how it affects and impacts the environment that we are in as coworkers. I think it's really, really important. As you pointed out, diversity, equity, inclusion, it is something that is really, 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 really on the top of minds of a lot of people today. And if we're not able to communicate to each other, we don't know how or learn how to communicate to each other from different backgrounds, we're going to have a bit of difficulty.
Yeah.
So, my next question for you is have you experienced anything like that in your workplace, and how have you worked around that?
Oh, absolutely. And just to piggyback, it's so important to build community. And yes, in terms of feeling othered or discounted, discredited, I've been in positions where when I was employed, something I always talked about, something I've always been very open with is talking about my family, my wife, my son. I've been in positions where, holidays rolls around and boss sends out, Christmas cards to everyone. He puts a little note in and says, Merry Christmas to you and, your son. And it's those little microaggressions that take place in the workplace. Was it intentional? Was it not? Considering I have a full family, but those are things that take place. Just being talked over in a meeting, or you know, uh, feeling like your thoughts are minimized. Maybe someone congratulates you, and the other person says, "Oh well, it was just this." There are so many different ways that it shows up, and that whether it be malicious, that's one thing. But a lot of times we're innocent. Some people are very innocent how they portray certain things, but it's building awareness, of your actions, how you show up, how you talk to people, the things that you say, um, to really be more mindful. Because I think the more we again come together, the more we're able to build that community and say, you know what, I this, even though that might be your belief, that might be something that you won't necessarily agree with. I think it's still so important to recognize and respect it at a minimum. If nothing else, respecting that other individual to really be able to communicate and collaborate going forward.
Absolutely. The communication and collaboration. Now, I understand your company, Blueprint, helps the company overall um, make it a lot easier for us to understand the same kind of language or understanding of the responsibilities or how we communicate with each other, per se. I remember I was working on some kind of project and you gave me some feedback about how perhaps the colors weren't um, friendly for people who might be a bit colorblind,
Mm-hmm.
and some things like that. Little things that we haven't really thought of to communicate for some people who don't we don't have their experience, so we don't think about those experiences. Can you tell me how your company helps people feel less othered, essentially when it comes to learning new things for key organizational pieces?
Yeah. Well, a few ways. One is keeping ourselves educated on what are the compliance laws out there. So there's a 808 compliance law that gives us a base foundation one. So it's really being familiar with that. And then two, finding other experts in the industry. Like I've met people who specialize in ADHD, who specialize in dyslexia, who specialize overall in neurodiversity. And it's really equipping ourselves to collaborate in those spaces to make sure that we're not just looking at from one view, we're getting alternative views as well from people who have that lens and expertise. Learning and development is a collaborative space. So when I work with these organizations, it comes down to why are we creating training for your team or your organization? What skills are we looking to improve? What are you looking to be done different? Are we, training them on a new system? Are we training them on a new product? Are we training them on sales? Whatever that key topic is really understanding the people, where they are, how, and also how they learn information. And again, it's uh, having the conversations, opening the door, collaborating with others, and like I said, keeping ourselves up to date on what right should truly look like in the most effective way.
Right on. Yeah, what rights should look like according to codes and standards, because there are so many people with hidden disabilities. I believe, I'm not quite sure what the term is, but I want to make sure they're invisible disabilities or invisible things like ADHD, dyslexia, essentially this chronic illnesses where they're exhausted and they're tired, and the way they learn is going to be different than the way someone else learns. And so it's really important to make it level set for everybody to understand what is the purpose of us doing this, and then what's the best way to deliver that message. What's the best way to deliver that message? So, I'd be curious to know, because I think any company would be interested in the work that you do. What companies usually hire you?
Companies who are in a position where they're typically in growth mode. Like they have anywhere from 100 or more employees, some 1,000 plus employees, and they recognize, we need someone to assist us in delivering a specific learning initiative. So, for example, recently I worked with a fractional HR team. They had a big trucking organization client. They came in and said, "Hey, Teresa, we could really use some assistance, like an instructional design lens to create the courses. We haven't really taken a lot of this training that's virtual leader led or classroom leader led online. What is going to be the most effective way to deliver it to this audience? When you think about truck drivers and in office folks, what's going to be the most effective way to deliver it to them?" And what I did was coming in and really helping them to map out a strategy. And that was a couple of, discovery listening sessions between from their frontline employees up to the C-suite, to say, okay, these are going to be the objectives for each audience specifically around this topic. The topic was diversity, equity, inclusion specifically, but looking at, what does it look like from a frontline employee lens, a mid-level lens, a director lens, a C-suite lens, and creating the training to talk to each one of those groups so they know exactly how to apply it to them in their role and how they can live out those values in their everyday. And that's something we do with every organization, get an understanding of what are the topics and collaborate with their team and saying, okay, this is how we're going to strategize the path forward for this particular topic. So what is that particular thing? My clients, they are what I consider to be the subject matter experts. We allow them to own, the intellectual property. Where we come in to add value is, again, creating that learning strategy and helping them to execute it right directly to that audience that they want it for.
Absolutely. So you really listen, you really use that skill of listening and you develop that into something that people are actually going to learn from and share with the rest of the company. So I really think that's like one of the key, that is like the key the thing to do when you're working with people, is to listen. You come in as an expert in what you do as designing the materials, but you listen to the experts when it comes to the job that they have. That is really quite amazing. And so I want to thank you so much again for joining us.
Yeah.
Could you tell us where people can find you?
Sure. So the main space is going to be on LinkedIn. You can look up my name, Taresa, last name Scott. I have my newsletter there. I post a lot of educational material, and also even my calendar is there. So if you would love to jump on, have a one-on-one and connect, or maybe you need assistance with your learning and development strategy, would love to assist and map that out for you.
All right. Thank you so much, Teresa. We really do appreciate you coming aboard and having this wonderful conversation with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And there you have it, another insightful episode of the Engaged Employee Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the deep dive into the world of employee engagement, leadership, and workplace dynamics. The Engaged Employee Podcast is brought to you by the Patterns of Possibility, where we help people make more meaningful relationships in both their personal and professional life. Before we wrap up, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our incredible guests and, of course, our loyal listeners. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you valuable content each week. If you found today's discussion thought-provoking and want to learn more about how we can help you or your organization make more meaningful relationships, go to patternsofpossibility.com and book a friendly conversation with me. Or you can email me your questions at patternsofpossibility@gmail.com. Stay connected with us and engage with fellow listeners by following the Patterns of Possibility on LinkedIn. You can also catch us on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to stay in the loop. And if you prefer the audio version, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your support means the world to us, and by subscribing, you'll never miss an episode. Thank you for being a part of our journey to create workplaces where passion meets productivity. Until next time, I'm Coach Lee. Stay engaged, stay inspired.